Here are the differences I noticed between the original 1987 book and the 2019 graphic novel of Babysitter's Club, Boy Crazy Stacey. The biggest difference is Scott. They changed his age and cut out over half of his material. The graphic novel starts in Stacey's room as Mom enters. In the original book, the scene is in the den as Stacey enters. Mimi is cut out of the graphic novel. They add a two-panel conversation about Kristy's dog, and a panel where Claudia's dad says something. Mallory isn't a member of the Babysitter's Club in the original book, so she's not invited to Kristy's house with the rest of the group. In general, the graphic novel cuts out as many of Mallory's lines as possible. The graphic novel doesn't give Mrs. Pike credit for convincing Stacey's parents to let her come along on the trip. The postcards in the graphic novel contain addresses. No addresses in the book. Stacey's dad and Marianne's dad get dialogue in the graphic novel. The road trip to Sea City is greatly shortened. They cut out the discussion of what the barf bucket is. They cut out Nikki insulting Claire at the start of the trip. They cut out Nikki singing several annoying songs. They cut out Nikki making a vomit comet sign to pester his brothers. They cut out the discussion of moving Claire to a different seat so she won't throw up. They cut out the scene of the kids recognizing all the billboards. They did add a scene where the kids fight over nothing. They cut the scene of the Pikes stopping at the realtors to get the house keys. The trip through town is shortened into one page. In the book, it's several pages where they list most of the places in town that we see later on. Scott is now 15 instead of 18. Scott is now dark-haired instead of blonde. Stacey stares at Scott, speechless. In the book, she twice tells Marianne that she's in love with the gorgeous lifeguard. Stacey makes Claire and Margot sleep on the floor. In the book, she lets them crawl into bed with her. They cut out the scene where Mr. Pike asks Stacey about all the breakfast foods to make sure there's something she can eat. They cut out the scene where Stacey and Marianne take off their outerwear and compare bikinis. They cut out the subplot about Stacey dyeing her hair a different color. In the book, a bunch of girls hang around the lifeguard stand all day. Stacey is jealous of them. The graphic novel replaces them with other lifeguards and Abby. They cut out the scene where Scott and the lifeguard stop what they're doing so they can stare at college women in swimsuits. Stacey doesn't ask Scott what time it is as an excuse to talk to him. Scott doesn't give Stacey any nicknames. In the book, he calls her things like honey, love, and cutie pretty much every time he says a sentence to her. Scott doesn't tell Stacey, I've been noticing you. Stacey isn't awkward when introducing herself to Scott. Scott doesn't ask Stacey to get him a soda. When Claire is hurt, Scott cheers her up by making a funny face. This is original to the graphic novel, and I like that. It's pretty much the only attempt to add something to Scott's character instead of just cutting stuff out. They cut out the scene where the babysitters prepare the kids to leave for dinner. The fight over which kids sit where is about half as long. They cut out the part where Vanessa is compared to Elizabeth Barrett Browning. They cut out the part where they order food at Burger Garden. They cut out the part where Nikki tells jokes. When everyone gets something for Marianne's sunburn, 3 of the items are moisturizer, water, and peanut butter. In the book, they were Noxzema, Solar Cane, an ice pack, and butter. They change who got Marianne what item. Adam is the only person who gets her the same item in both versions. Marianne's caftan is changed to a coat and jeans. They cut out Stacey talking about Scott's day off, along with her reference to it later on in the book. They cut out the scene where Scott is so nice to Stacey, the other girls at the lifeguard stand decide to talk to Bruce instead. Bruce, the lifeguard, is changed into Dave, the lifeguard. We see Alex introduce himself to Marianne. Stacey doesn't describe that scene in the book because she wasn't around to witness it. It's made clear that the shark sighting is a false alarm. In the book, it's not confirmed if it was a shark or not. They cut out the scene where Stacey gets Scott a soda, and a sandwich, and another soda. The Marianne-Stacey conversation changes. Marianne says there's too much to pack, while in the original, she lists everything that needs to be packed. Marianne says they're both getting paid, While in the original, she complains Stacey's getting paid just as much as she is. They cut out the part where Stacey blames Marianne's rude behavior on her sunburn. I like that line, I wish they'd kept it. But I'm guessing they wanted Stacey to be less of a jerk. Scott hangs back for a while to tell Stacey she's fun. In the book, he hangs back to thank her for all the food, and he gives her his whistle as a present. Scott leaves when his friend honks the car horn at him. In the book, he leaves on his own. They cut out both lines of the Chapter 7 postcard, which mentions Scott's present to Stacey, since he doesn't give her a present in this version. In the mini-golf chapter, they cut out Nikki's hole-in-one. They cut out the part where Stacey implements a 20-stroke limit. They cut out the part where the kids get bored of mini-golf and they all quit one by one. Chapter 9 is completely cut out. That's a babysitting chapter where Karen and Andrew try to wash Watson's car, but they accidentally take all the paint off. They cut Stacey and Scott's conversation in Chapter 10, where he calls her beautiful. Stacey and Marianne don't get souvenirs for their friends. They add a page where Marianne talks about how much she's changed this past year. When Stacey looks for a gift for Scott, Marianne is far more involved in the process. In the book, Scott kisses a girl who Stacey's never seen before. In the graphic novel, this girl's named Abby. She was introduced in passing in Chapter 7. Marianne's postcard to Dawn doesn't point out that Scott was kissing someone much older than Stacey. Marianne's postcard to Dawn doesn't mention Stacey dyeing her hair. Marianne tells Stacey, "All I've been doing is covering for you." In the book, she says, "You are so rude. The least you could do is apologize." They cut out Stacey insulting Alex several times. The conversation ends when Marianne gets mad and leaves. In the book, Stacey follows her downstairs and apologizes, but Marianne ignores her. When Byron and Stacey go off by themselves, Byron doesn't tell Marianne where he's going. Stacey decides what happened isn't anyone's fault. In the book, she decides, "Oh, Scott really does like me, but I'm just too young for him." Stacey gives Marianne a big apology, which takes up 2 pages. The corresponding part of the book is a half sentence where Stacey says she apologized again. Stacey writes "sadness over" on her postcard. In the book, she writes, "I'm in love again." She writes love, L-U-V, the entire time. It's actually really annoying. Toby wears swim trunks when he meets Stacey. In the book, he has a shirt and a headband. Stacey goes into a lot of detail about his clothes. Alex forces Toby to talk to Stacey. That wasn't in the book. It was cute, though. I like it. They cut out the paragraph where Stacey talks about Toby's family and his interests. Toby doesn't tell Stacey a long joke about Albuquerque. Toby tells Stacey a different long joke later on during their date. They cut out the part where Marianne complains, "Girls can't ask guys out on dates." They cut out the scene of the girls preparing for the date. When Claire looks for her swimsuit at the start of Chapter 13, she is wearing clothes. In the book, she is naked when this happens. Stacey writes "Stacey plus Toby" on the beach. In the book, she writes "Stacey plus Toby equals love." L-U-V, love. I told you it's annoying. The scene of Marianne talking about her date with Alex is moved up a chapter. They cut out the part where Marianne says it's awkward to like boys for the first time. They cut out Toby saying he wants to kiss Stacey goodbye, but not in front of so many other people. They cut out the scene of Marianne crying. They cut out the scene where Stacey says goodbye to Scott and thanks him for the whistle. They cut out Stacey talking to Claudia about the various Pike kids. Claudia shouts a lot when she hears Stacey got her first kiss. In the book, her reaction is far more muted. So that's about 85 changes. Mostly they cut stuff out of the book. They only added a few things. I have no problem with them cutting minor stuff, like half a page of dialogue on the car trip, or maybe 3 pages on the golf course. Nobody's really gonna miss small stuff like that. But I was pretty surprised to learn they cut out the majority of Scott's lines. I didn't like Scott in the book, but I thought they would change his dialogue instead of completely removing it.